Welcome back to another episode of Trading Card History, where we dive deep into picture collectibles' rich journey from the 1800s to today. From baseball to Beatles, from football to fashion, and from pre-war to Pokemon, we will be covering every flavor of cards, the stories around them, and the people that made them happen. Let's resume. Part 2, T206, the set that saved baseball. From 1900 to 1913. As the marriage between tobacco and baseball cards expanded in the late 1880s, it created many staples in the trading card hobby that we still see today, the most notable of which were binders. Duke and Allen & Ginter watched the collectible demand of their cards explode, and they realized kids would want a way to display their cards to show their friends. Duke and Allen & Ginter started producing portfolios that kids could paste their cards into, and it was a huge hit. This allowed kids to have curated collections that they could display similarly to a museum. It developed a sense of community around the cards. As these portfolios gained popularity, third-party companies started producing binders that didn't require pasting, but instead used pockets. This allowed cards to be rearranged in a non-permanent fashion, which encouraged trading. It was not uncommon to see kids everywhere in the street carrying their binders around to show each other. This is an integral part of the hobby that has stayed for over a century. Even the most staunch graded card collector will tell you there's something special about opening a binder and looking through someone's collection. On a negative note, as companies started to market their tobacco cards to children, they faced increasing backlash over getting kids addicted to smoking. These criticisms had merit, as children's smoking was spiking alongside the tobacco card fad. As baseball cards became entangled with negative news headlines about children's safety, some cities expressly banned the sale of cigarettes with picture cards in them, citing that as the link with the increased tobacco usage among the youth. These laws did not take hold in any widespread usage, but the attempts of adults to prevent kids from getting tobacco cards only made them want them more. The handful of companies that had the means to produce the very expensive trading cards in their packs began taking a majority of the market. These new companies, with Duke being the large majority, began buying up the smaller tobacco companies and began colluding on pricing in this developing monopoly. In April 1889, these now tobacco powerhouse companies all met in Manhattan and joined forces, creating the American Tobacco Company. The ATC, also called the Tobacco Trust, would become one of the most ruthless and dominant monopolies in history. According to global financial data, they had an over 80% market share of cigarettes, plug tobacco, smoking tobacco, snuff products, the fields that produced the tobacco, and the machines that rolled the tobacco. They had a complete vertical integration of all stages of the process and a complete market dominance on every level. They quickly expanded into Great Britain, China, Japan, and other countries. The origins of possibly the most dominant single corporation in the world can be traced back to a single meeting in 1889 where companies got together to talk about baseball cards. It is worth reiterating once again that many people thank tobacco for the popularity of trading cards when it should be the other way around. Tobacco has been propelled forward by baseball cards since the very beginning. Over the next 20 years, the new corporate giant, American Tobacco Company, led by Buck Duke, continues to produce card sets here and there of various entities from actors and actresses, animals, and of course, baseball players. In 1909, however, ATC decided to create what would become the most hallowed set in trading card history, T206. The name T206 is widely known in the collectible space. This rather bland name was merely a code assigned by the company, with T standing for tobacco and 206 being the 206th set of cards produced. ATC was producing seemingly random sets of random subjects since their monopoly formed, but in 1909, with the T206 set, they decided to produce a set of every baseball player in the major leagues and the minor leagues at the time. Produced over a 2-year span from 1909 to 1911, this massive 524 card set serves as the best documentation of pre-war baseball, in beautiful color portraits nonetheless. American Tobacco Company was a massive conglomerate that was dominating the industry, so by 1909, the government launched antitrust action against them. In an attempt to skirt the Sherman antitrust laws, the American Tobacco Company started producing cigarettes under the names of various companies they absorbed. This in turn made the T206 cards have many different backs to the same card set. Each of the 524 players have many different back designs, with some smaller companies being far rarer than others. PSA wrote a fabulous article talking about all the T206 backs and their individual histories, so I won't go too in depth on specifics, but I've included that link below if you would like to read it. They also created a very helpful graphic illustrating the rarities. This was made in 2015, so the population numbers are inaccurate, but rarity percentages have stayed relatively consistent over the years. A player with a common back like Piedmont versus a rare back like American Beauty can be as much as 100 times the price difference. This is why the market for T206 is very difficult to understand without taking the time to research the set as a whole. Due to the vast number of players featured in this monumental set, there are dozens of desirable Hall of Famers that sell well into the 6-figure range, depending on that back rarity. The most notable cards of the set are widely referred to as the Big Four or the Four Horsemen. Information for this section of the video was gathered from T206resource.com, which is cited in the description. The members of the Big Four are Sherry McGee, Joe Doyle, Eddie Plank, and Honus Wagner, the hobby's holy grail. The first two are errors, and the latter two's rarity are shrouded in mystery. Sherry McGee's normal card is not that rare in of itself, but there is an extremely rare error printing where his last name is misspelled as Meiji with an IE instead of an EE. A limited number of cards in the first print run of numerous manufacturers contained this error before it was corrected. Joe Doyle's rarity comes from a similar origin. In the first printing of his card, his team was listed as the New York national team when he actually played for the American League of New York. These sound similar, but are two different ball clubs. This card is rarer than the Magic card, as it was only found in the first print run of only one of the manufacturers, Piedmont. Eddie Plank comes in at number 2 in the quartet behind Wagner, with a mysterious story collectors still argue about. This card is featured on only Piedmont and Sweet Caporal backs. These companies produced their cards in 2 separate factories about a year apart. Eddie Plank was short printed in the first line of Piedmont backs in 1909, but then very quickly removed from production for unknown reasons. Then, for equally unknown reasons, Plank was brought back briefly with the Sweet Caporal backs in 1910, and once again quickly removed from production, leading to having 2 different but extremely rare editions of the card. Baseball historians theorize that there was an initial disagreement with the American Tobacco Company that resulted in the first production halt, with the second wave coming by accident or produced by a rogue employee. The last member of the Big Four is the most famous card in trading card history, the T206 Honus Wagner. Wagner's card is the most short printed card in the set, and combined with the fact that he is one of the greatest players of that generation, leads to the fame surrounding his card. Honus Wagner was a very staunch adversary to tobacco. He is quoted by the Trenton Evening Times saying, "Smoking is all right for grown-ups, but it isn't good for kids. If they see that I'm boosting a cigarette, a lot of them will think they ought to smoke. I don't want to be responsible for that." Since baseball cards were so popular with kids, it is widely theorized that he demanded his cards be removed from production so as to not tie his likeness together with tobacco. Due to how quickly he requested his removal, the hobby estimates that around 60 to 100 were produced. Between all the grading companies, 51 have been graded in total, 32 with PSA, 18 with SGC, and 1 with GAI at the time of this video. This card is the holy grail of the hobby. Examples of this card are owned by some of the biggest names in the hobby, from Hall of Fame athletes like Wayne Gretzky to organizations as a whole, such as the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ken Golden with Golden Auctions summarized what this card means to the hobby in a succinct but accurate answer. The card is history, it's art, and it's folklore. This magnificent set garnered massive attention, further bringing children to ball games to watch their binders of players come to life on the diamond. Due to a lack of media around the baseball games, kids that could not go to the games were more familiar with the cards than the sport itself. This card set, featuring almost every major and minor league player, created fans of the sport who may not even have seen a professional game with their own eyes. The folklore around T206 goes beyond being an encyclopedia to that era. To many fans, T206 was baseball.